What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Julian J. Franco Show, a show where I bring to you people who I find to be truly genuine. And again, not only in front of the camera, but behind the scenes. Now, this coming person is somebody who I met in person. And the reason I feel they're so genuine is because they invited me to their birthday party. And in their birthday party, I got to see the man behind the scenes. I got to meet all of his close friends and family and celebrity clients and hear him take the stage and grab a microphone and just share a story from his heart, which he got emotional during. And it's really cool to be able to spend time with somebody on such a special occasion. So without further ado, Darren, I'm going to bring it over to you. And I want you, because you're a man that's very complex. You have many layers to you. You've done so much, whether it's personal or career. But I want you, if we're at a 5-star hotel and we're all hanging out and somebody says, "Hey, Mr. Prince, what do you do? What are you about?" How would you introduce yourself?
I would introduce. Thanks for that intro, by the way, man, and thank you for coming to my 50th. You were a great babysitter for Dennis Rodman. I remember that one. And Magic loved you too. So, more or less, you want a short little background of who I'm at today. You tell me.
All of it,
All
baby,
right,
all of it.
I'll sum it up because I mean you're pretty good summing things up. I grew up in Livingston, New Jersey. Great loving mother and father, had a lot of friends, but suffered with broken self-esteem, low self-esteem, no self-esteem, never feeling a part of, was in small classroom, told I had a learning disability, did a number on my psyche, eventually at sleepaway camp with all those feelings, wound up experiencing drugs for the first time in my life. I took a green liquid that a nurse gave me to change my life forever. And it became my superpowers. And that green liquid I did for 3 straight weeks every night, lying to the nurse I was in pain, liquid Demerol. And came back to New Jersey a couple months later. Same thing happened with the dentist from Vicodins. And again, my superpowers. Now, business-wise, I started a multi-million-dollar baseball card company at 14. So now I got a 14-year-old that feels inadequate, doesn't feel worthy of anything, suffers from extreme anxiety, is classified as having a learning disability. You get all that money, you're starting to dabble in drugs, not a problem.
Okay, well, that's incredible how at that age you already got addicted to those drugs. And from early on, do you remember what was it about that green liquid that made you feel so good, that made you go, "Hey, you know what? I want a little more of that."
Yeah, I mean, it just took away all those inadequacies, man. It was like it was heaven. It was that's why I know I'm still a junkie to this day, because I think about it and it feels good. I remember that feeling, and it just made me feel unstoppable. It made me feel like I was on top of the world. It made me feel just as good as everybody else, just as smart, even smarter, better looking, all the things that artificial substances do to kind of just make us feel who we're not without those in our system. And I just needed more of it. I just knew that I couldn't function in life with whatever that was. And again, 14, you don't know what Demerol is, but I just knew there was a certain feeling. And that feeling came back when I had my wisdom teeth taken out 3 months later from these white pills that my mom gave me, which were Vicodin extra strength.
Okay, so this to me is fascinating because the more you talk about your drug use as a very early on in your life, it's easy for anybody listening right now who doesn't know you to think like, wow, you must have had just like a really horrible life and a horrible career. And even though you said you made a lot of money at a really young age with a baseball card company that you created, which is fantastic. So what I really want to do right now is I want to impress the audience, the person listening right now going, "Man, why am I going to listen to somebody who's talking as if he's a junkie, who's just chasing the next big high? He went from this to that when he was getting his wisdom teeth pulled, and then he did this and did that. I'm off the hook now." But now I want them to be hooked, like we talked about beforehand, because a lot of people in life, we can hear about somebody, Darren, we could watch the news and in 5 minutes we can hear John Lynn, was hit by a semi truck and his car exploded, and Tracy was in the car next to him, and then somebody on a motorcycle, his motorcycle exploded, and they all died. Guess what? Within 2 minutes, we're thinking to ourselves, okay, wow, that's so sad. But 5 minutes later, hey, Darren, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? Right? Like
Exactly.
we don't care. We only care about us, our hunger, our
Yeah.
pains, and whatever we deem to be important. So right now, in the ears or the eyes of the person watching right now, why are you important in society's culture in today's day and age? What makes you an important man? So let's talk about your status, Darren. Your status as the person who works with all these celebrities and starts these, $1 million companies. Let's talk about that.
So, if I can mix in a little bit of the personal story, I eventually sold the company at 19, had a sports memorabilia company for about 3 years, was doing autograph signings with Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Dennis Rodman, Joe Frazier, Pamela Anderson, booking all their autograph signings, Chevy Chase. And eventually in my mid-20s, hit a brick wall financially, got into some legal trouble selling at the time, which I didn't know, some fraudulent memorabilia, lost all the money, and had this awakening with my father fishing in Alaska. Here I am. Everybody thought I made it out. I wasn't the learning disabled kid anymore, super successful. And we're fishing in Alaska. My dad asked me what my next move was. And I said, I want to be an agent, but I don't have 8 years to go to law school, Dad. And he looked at me like I was crazy, dropped his fishing pole and said, life is about who you know, not what you know. Do you realize the resources you have? Do you realize the connections that you have? The biggest stars in the world? Go speak to Magic and tell him your vision. I guarantee he will support you. And a month later, I'm with Magic in Detroit in his hotel suite, and it was almost like deja vu. The conversation with my dad. He goes, "Hey, boy," he goes, "what's happening? How you doing?" He goes, "You're going to come out of this. God tests great men and women. He tested me with my challenges and whatnot. He's just testing you. And what are you going to do? You're going to go back into the business?" And I was so nervous because then that learning disabled kid, all those emotions came in, and I just built up the nerve to tell him. And I said, I want to be an agent. And I said, I want you to be my first client. And he says to me, you know what? I love you. I love your family. You're a good guy. And I know that. And I'm going to give you 2 years to build your agency. But if you don't use me and act on every door to bring in all the celebrities you can, I'm going to fire you before those 2 years are up. Because life isn't how successful I become. It's about how successful I make you and everybody else around me. That it's about giving back, reaching back, and pulling forward. And I just couldn't believe it. It was like magical words from a magical guy that's telling me, exploit me, which in the celebrity world you don't do. Go out, utilize my name, and build your agency. Now, at the time, I knew I had these morality clauses, Julian, so I couldn't really dabble with the illegal drugs anymore, but I did have sciatica and anxiety, so it was great. I'd go to any doctors. They'd read about me in the newspaper. It was probably before the internet. Page 6 was the big gossip page, and TMZ before TMZ. And like, this guy doesn't have a problem. So Percocets, Oxycontins, Vicodins became my best friend for the next 5 to 6 years. And, I don't lie to people when I tell them, I was a rock star. At one point, was once living to use, though, it turned on me. And eventually became using to live. And the last 6 or 7 years, it was pure hell.
That is fascinating. That is continue, 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 continue. So you become very successful from an outsider's perspective. You're doing it well. You're going to these parties, these meet and greets. Your phone is filled with all these celebrities' numbers and whatnot. And what drives you to continue using? Like, isn't it good enough already, your life and maybe the chances of the woman that you have around you, the money, the just the finances, everything should be so good. It's like when somebody thinks about somebody using, they think about somebody using who's unemployed, unattractive, and they live under a bridge. Yes, you need to soothe the mind and your psyche somehow, then I can understand him using. But DP, the agent, are you kidding me? He's using? Why was that?
Because that inner Darren was unhealed. That little Darren and that high school Darren was looking back at everybody that said he could have, went, and shouldn't, and won't, saying, look at me and look at you. I was the dumb one, right? I was the one who wasn't going to make it. So I had a very unique situation of getting to the top, but staring behind me in the rearview mirror, always needing to prove. And it's why I'm so passionate. I speak all over the world, especially high school kids and grammar school kids, because if I would have spoke up, I mean, who knows how different things could have been and would have been. And I want them to understand that, no, stop the bullying, the social media bullying, the making fun of, the name calling. Like, it's not going to matter in 10 years. The only thing that's going to matter is the trauma that you've dealt with from not speaking up about it, or the mental abuse and, God forbid, physical and emotional, everything else you go through. Because here I am, and those same kids that were making fun of me, man, at a certain point in my life were calling me boss, because they were all working for me, because they needed jobs out of college. And so again, it was about the power, it was about the ego. Look at me, look at you, go do this for me, go do that for me. It's the fancy cars, the big houses, the hottest woman, all exterior stuff, all about that imposter syndrome. I didn't care. I've been on 10, 15 Super Bowl football fields during celebrations. I'd go with Smokin Joe, sit ringside at all the biggest championship fights, and all that stuff with Magic here and Hulk Hogan, like all the clients. Pamela Anderson, you can watch the Tyson Botha fight. I'm sitting ringside with her, and my boy Chuck Zito. Like, stuff didn't matter anymore. It was always not about being present in the moment, but I wanted everybody to see, look at me and look at you.
Okay, Darren, that is incredible, and I have to say you're a great storyteller. Every time you begin speaking on anything, I don't even want to have any follow up with you. I just want you to keep talking and keep talking. So yeah, no, seriously, everything you're doing is really good, and it also reminds me of your birthday too, when you got up there and you just shared, and you were just very reflective that night. And then I said, man, that guy's really good at speaking and talking. And I was telling Patrick about it. Patrick Ganino, big shout out to you. He's
Yeah,
he's a great, fantastic spirit, and just I
we
wish we could have
love
him.
you. Love
Yeah,
you.
we love you, Patrick, and we wish we could have you sitting right here.
Yeah.
But maybe next one. So the fact that you speak on the inner child wasn't healed, and the younger you was still within you and everything you did. Now let's talk. Let's rewind now. You're 3 weeks into that green liquid. You get your wisdom teeth pulled, and you're on these pills. What was it during your childhood that allowed for you to continue doing that? Were your parents very present, and did they notice a change within you, or were you able just to skate by? And like, what was the deal with young Darren? Like, what was he like at 14, 15, 16?
I think my dad especially was so caught up that his son became a success as a teenager. He was an entrepreneur, and it was so exciting. And I hit it so well from him. Never drank, never did drugs, didn't know. My mom's side of the family has what I like to call the isms. So she knew it, but I would just get very defensive, and I was justified. My creative genius gets going, Mom, when I'm high. All these things I think of, I smoke a joint, I do this, I lay out my advertising. People love my ads. It was all just artificial bullcrap. Always wanting to create a reason until, like I said, I couldn't think of one anymore. And the majority of it was just not feeling worthy. And he talked too about that inner Darren. Same thing. Didn't matter that I'm sitting ringside at fights or on the Super Bowl negotiating multi-million-dollar marketing endorsement deals, commercials, and feel worthy in the end of it, man. I had no self-love whatsoever. And, up until the end, I was a broken soul, and just living this double life of imposter syndrome until, my bottom became my brand new beginning.
My bottom became my brand new beginning. As you guys know, he's also an author of a great, fantastic book, Aiming High. So when you listen to him speak like that, and you're just admiring his skills. That's why he's also a writer, and I find anybody who writes has to be great at speaking, right? Because
Shout out to Chris McGinnis too. She brilliantly helped me with the book and wrote the masterpiece. But yeah, we very near and dear to my spiritual sister. She did a beautiful job. But yeah, man. I mean, I think sometimes when you speak from the heart and it's just real and it's the truth, it never changes. We could speak for the next week every single day. It's going to come out the exact same way, And I'm on this God-given journey, it's a God-given gift that I have every single day to speak to people on mental health and substance abuse and anything they're struggling with. And If it wasn't for the iconic stars and the legends that I've been around, no, I never would have had this platform. You know, you guys, you, Jay, everybody, nobody would have known who Darren Prince was. So I think that was just a byproduct. The whole time, God knew exactly what he was doing. He was waiting for me to come to him and tell him I'm ready. I'm desperate. I need your help.
I love that. And that's what I'm finding too, Darren. Like, you have to be desperate for deliverance. You have to be desperate to want to change, because if not, then I still have more pills on the counter, right?
Yep.
Tonight's going to be a great night. I'm going to continue doing that.
And any addiction, man. It's not just drugs, alcohol. It could be shopping, gambling, overeating, not eating enough. I mean, there's a million things. Sex addictions. I mean, it's all the same. If you look up the 12 steps, the bottom line is alcohol or substance is just in the first step. The next 11 steps, the first one is about being powerless and admitting that your life is unmanageable. There's a reason hundreds of 12-step fellowship exist, because everybody listening is struggling with something on your podcast. If you look at the other 10, it's taking an inventory. It's taking an action of apologizing, accountability, having a connection to a power greater than ourselves. You don't need to believe in God. I do. I know everybody has their own opinion. I know there's a power greater than ourselves for all of us, because we all have those moments in life where one little belief could have gone the wrongest way possible, and it didn't.
That is the truth. And I definitely want to talk about faith. And, you know, as of late, I've been really reflective and just pouring my heart out to God, and just, you know, wishing to see a miracle, signs and wonders, and to even be a vessel. That's one of my prayers every morning, is like, Lord, help me to either be a vessel for a miracle to happen
You
in
are, man.
somebody
You're doing
else's
it
life.
right now with your podcast. It's great stuff.
Come on, Darren. You see this? You're already encouraging me, man. Listen, now I want to go from when you were a young kid and you were making all this money, and how did you even start that business? How does one even get to that? Like, that's what
I had an
nobody.
intro to business teacher who's retired. I know I'm still close with him to this day, Elliot Lovey. And I had a big baseball card collection. I kind of had this vision where my friends all, like, you wouldn't remember the names. You probably heard of them, but you're too young. But back in the 80s, it was Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, Don Mattingly, Roger Clemens, Jose Canseco, Darryl Strawberry. So all my friends wanted the newer cards. But I realized there was a price guide long before Beckett, and if you have any collectors that are listening, something called CCP. It was a newspaper that would come once a week. And I would always notice the value of the real old cards had a lot more interest and a lot more valuable. So these kids would have like Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, if they got them from their grandfathers. I would trade them my brand new cards that I just got out of the pack of gum, and they would give me these old, stinky, ugly looking cards. And then I had 4 different odd jobs, and I would go to Toys R Us all the time and buy the wax packs and the rack packs and new kind of, I don't know, I think I had a sixth sense of knowing who were the hot rookies going to be. And I would always save them and put them in like better holders and separate them. And so the intro to business teacher, when I challenged us to have a business. Now, in my mind, I had something called Baseball Card City, but I never executed on it. So we hear so many podcasts and inspirational messages and motivational ones. And my dad used to say the idea is 1%. Everybody's got them. Carrying it through is the other 99. And this teacher challenged us to go and create a business. I already had it, so I was one leg up. I didn't make one sale. I mentioned to my dad I need insurance. He thought I was crazy. I told him I need about 8 or 9. He said, okay, I'll get you 1,000 worth of homeowners insurance in case we ever have a flood one day, God forbid. And I'm like, no, Dad, it's about 9,000 I have worth of cards. He goes, what? How are you 14 years old, have $9,000 worth of cards? And God bless him, may he rest in peace. If it wasn't for Dad, I wouldn't be in this position today. He took such interest in his son that struggled so bad in school that connection that night asking me that made me run upstairs like a little kid, all excited in my pajamas, bring down a couple boxes of cards with the price guide. And I even took a newspaper ad that I saw in the town paper for a card show the next weekend. And I started showing him, and he goes, well, how do you know people are going to buy them? I said, because of this. And I opened this big newspaper ad. It was $20 to get an 8-foot table. And so my friend Steve Simon, who Patrick knows very well, runs my agency. We go back since I was 10. We split the $20 fee. He might have spent a half hour preparing. He didn't care about making money. He did it just to have fun. Julian, I spent 2 weeks every day after school, day and night. My dad had a typesetting company. I had the most perfect signs, typesetted, and I just went into this knowing that this is going to be my calling. And I made probably upwards of a couple $1,000s on that Sunday afternoon, and Steve made maybe $50. And yeah, that was the beginning of it right there. Yep, the light bulb went on.
Okay, that
Wheeling DL in the middle of the room, not high on drugs, feeling like in my element, this young kind of teenage whiz in the baseball card game. And yeah, that was it. I'll tell you what's interesting though, because we talk about the mental health. When I got home that night, the envelope full of cash, and I bought, sold, trade, bought new cards that I never had before at the time in my life. I remember sitting in the bed with the empty feeling of brokenness, like the kid in the back of the room, until the next show happened a week later. I did not know how to get my mindset, my self-esteem. It felt like I wasn't alive again. It felt like it was a quick fix from like 8 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. So it makes sense of somebody like me grabbing for drugs, instant gratification.
so yeah, it definitely makes sense why you would become addicted. Now, this started when you were maybe, you said, about 14 years old,
14.
and at what point did it just stay with pills, or did it go to alcohol? Did it go to other
No, I mean, yeah,
substances?
I did everything, man. Cocaine, ecstasy was huge back then. Whatever it was that I could put in my system affect me from the neck up, I did it. I had zero repercussions until I was 21 years old. I was arrested 4 times in 6 months. And the judge put me in an outpatient program for a year and said if I got in trouble, I'd be going to prison for 6 months. The day that I so-called graduated, where I got the news that I was done with the outpatient program, I called my friend Dave and I said, hey man, let's go out to New York City, get some drinks, party our ass off. I mean, who thinks like that? I'm done almost graduating, and the first thing I do is I want to go get banged up. So on the way to the city, we take a handful of Xanax, did these mind eraser shots. On the way back, Julian, that night, next thing I know, I'm in the ICU. And Dave fell asleep behind the wheel. His car went in a ditch. My face went into the windshield, 90 stitches, broken nose, concussion, split lip. And the first two people I see, for anybody listening, are my mom and dad with tears rolling down their face. I literally just completed a 1-year outpatient program. And that night at 3 in the morning, they're going to call me in the ICU. Because that's what addiction does. It destroys families. It destroys every single person around us. And I was a runaway freight train because now I had money and I was 21 years old. And their baby boy was so sick and so suffering, and they had no idea what they had to do. And, then you throw me into the world of celebrities and the big lights and the red carpets and the music award shows, and the recipe for a disaster for somebody like me. At least I was smart. I never went near the illegal drugs. I just knew, let me get something for my physical pain and anxiety. And, I believed all the bull crap myself until, like I said, what was once, living to use turned out to using to live. And I lost my superpowers. That feeling I was chasing, man, for 20 plus years after I experienced it at sleepaway camp was no more. Now these pills, these opiates became my kryptonite. And I was suicidal. I was at the jumping off point. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. Biggest stars in the world, all the money I ever needed, all the recognition and respect they ever needed. Didn't even matter, because if you look behind me right here is Magic Johnson, Rodman, and Smokin Joe Frazier. That was my wedding picture. They were my wedding party. And I was detoxing the night of my wedding because I didn't want to be high out of respect to my wife and her family. And how many people can tell you they were in their wedding party? Didn't mean anything because I didn't mean anything. I was just a broken soul. And I had an overdose in Las Vegas, 2007. I was with Rodman, who doesn't do drugs, by the way. He was in his hotel suite. We had a big party event. We did a big TV show deal with Mark Cuban for his HDNet TV called Geek to Freak. And I woke up with a horrible case of bronchitis, man. I called the doctor to the room. He called the pharmacy, got me a big bottle of Tussin X cough syrup, called in, which is an opiate-based cough syrup. Gave me about 100 Vicodins for the inflammation and some antibiotic. And I called my then wife at the time I was married, and I said, do me a favor, get me 3 vodka Red Bull and cranberries. I'm getting ready to go out. And I took 2 of those vodka Red Bull cranberries real quick. I downed half the cough syrup. I chopped up a couple of the painkillers. I snorted them. And man, I'm within 5 minutes, I tell the story to this day, my heart feels like it's pounding out of my chest, like it's ready to freaking explode. I'm sweating. I've got the chills. I'm foaming at the mouth. I can't see, blurry vision. I'm freaking out. I said, God, don't take me. I don't know what the hell I just did. I'll never do this again. Simone calls 911. The paramedics break down the door, oxygen mask on my face, needle on my arm, EKG machine everywhere. I'm in and out of consciousness, just praying at the sky that it doesn't take me. And never made it out that night, but I remember waking up at 4 a.m. and going to the bathroom to look at myself, and I was like, "You sick bastard! How do you have all this, and you're living this other life?" And with that, I chopped up probably 4 of the Percocets, whatever it was, and drank half the bottle of cough syrup and went back into bed because my addict thinking was it was the vodka, Red Bull, and cranberry that triggered the overdose. And they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Darren, there's a level of admiration that I have for you or anyone who is able to be so transparent and vulnerable with their past and what they went through, because you don't want nobody to think about you a certain way, right? You just want people to think about you in this prestigious way and not in this darkness that you had to face and go through. Now, again, we can go down so many avenues, but one thing I want to ask you as we start to wrap is, how has your relationship with God helped you through all of this?
That's a great question, man. So now we can get to my real bottom. It up perfectly, man, for me. So that next week after Vegas, I went home. I had a little bit of accountability. I called an addiction psychiatrist to put me on Suboxone, which is an opiate detox drug. But I lied to him. I'm still having freaking beers here and there. I'm on antidepressants. I'm on mood stabilizers, anxiety meds. I'm sniffing Ambien before I go to bed. And I lived that way for 15 months. On July 1st, 2008, when I was truly at my sickest, darkest, weakest hour, I got a visit from my late uncle Stu and his then girlfriend Andrea. They were visiting my mom. Came to my condo in New Jersey, and I never met this woman before. And she was my first God moment because she's like, "Are you okay?" But I felt tractor beams with her like I never felt with a human. And I told her everything that was going on. And she goes, "Do you realize you're an addict? Your life's unmanageable?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you realize you're powerless and you have a disease?" I said, "Uh-huh." She goes, "Most importantly, all this," and she started pointing to all these different photos with celebrities and awards that I've achieved, and it doesn't mean nothing because you don't mean nothing. And remember, disease of addiction does not discriminate whether you've been to Yale or jail or Park Avenue or Park Bench. Do you want help? And that broke my soul. And I said, I'm desperate. And probably 24 hours or so later, was July 2nd, 2008. I came back from the gym. I'm shaking. I'm trembling, all the horrific things that come with the detox. And I called him up. I said, "I'm calling the doctor. I can't do it. I'm getting what I really need to get." And my uncle starts screaming on the other line, "It's the damn disease talking. It's time to kick the crap out of it. Put your damn ego aside and find yourself a 12-step meeting online in New York City. They're the only people that are going to help you at this point." And I hung up the phone. I said, "I can't do it. I've been to those stupid meetings when I was 21 years old. It did nothing." Ran in the bathroom, locked the door. My then wife's banging on the door, started crying, thinking I'm really going to overdose and kill myself this time because she was just a part of it in Vegas. And yelling, "Baby, don't do it. Don't do it." I'm going through the medicine cabinet trying to find some non-narcotic anxiety pills. And I think it was 2 Vicodins that came out, which was shocking because we knew that we cleaned out every medicine cabinet. But it was also perfect timing to me at that time because I'm like, God, exactly what I needed. Thank you. But then the turn happened. I don't know why. I don't know how, because I never spoke to God before in my life, and I never have since with this level of intensity, man. But I fell to my knees and I screamed, "Take the money, take the notoriety, take the business. I need a single day of freedom. If you take me out of hell, I promise I will spend one day at a time the rest of my life taking others out with me. And people talk about a white light moment, and I had it right there at the Caroline building in New York City. And it was like a lightning bolt just shot through my body. And I heard in this year, I've got you and you're ready. And I stood up and I flushed the bills. And there was no Uber. I go downstairs. Simone knew exactly where I was going and jumped in the cab with me. And I'm looking up at a beautiful night, July 2nd, 2008, in the summer, saying, oh my God, for the first time in my life, I wanted to get sober. I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to get high. And I walked into a church basement, man, 150 to 200 addicts and alcoholics who were all once in a hopeless state of mind. And I heard a leader say, is there anybody new or coming back or sick and suffering? And God did it again because he raised my hand. And this so-called super agent was a fraud. And I was able to say, I'm sick, I'm suffering, I'm suicidal, I need your guys' help. I have an amazing life outside these rooms, but I can't do it without you. And most beautiful thing ever happened. There's probably a dozen spiritual brothers and sisters that came over to me and started hugging me. We've been where you've been, Darren. Don't worry about loving yourself yet, because we're going to love you before you ever learn how to love yourself. You got to understand the 5 A's: attitude adjustment, action, accountability, and acceptance. And eventually you'll put them into your heart and you'll put them into your soul. And you'll work through the steps and you go back and figure out where things went wrong and get that healing and that clearing. And then they said, just me, most beautiful one was, and don't worry about it if you get the program. Because if you keep coming, God in the program is going to get you. And that was it, man. I mean, they told me things in that hour that I never felt a part of anything so close in my life. It wasn't Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier or Hulk or Ric Flair or Magic Johnson or Rodman. These spiritual brothers and sisters finally made me feel like I'm understood. They think the way that I think. And I showed God I had the gift of desperation that night, July 2nd, 2008. He then slowly gave me the power of choice back in my life. But the biggest key is, anybody in recovery knows this, once I took that gift and started helping other people, because I can't keep my recovery unless I give it away, that's when hope and recovery began.
Lord, Lord, Lord. Okay, now seeing everything in hindsight, and Darren, I hope one day we can do a part 2, because there's just so much to you. But looking back now, what would you say are some of the things you know now that can help? I wouldn't necessarily say expedite somebody's recovery, but help them not go through as much as you went through it. Like, is there anything today that's, that's frontline that you're a part of now that you want to share?
Yeah, I always think you got to get a good a good therapist. I'm a firm believer in the 12-step fellowship. I mentioned to you about Suboxone earlier because my good friend Tim is going to come on. That was the hardest part for me, man. I switched from one drug to another. And for people that know, Suboxone is an opiate blocker. It's like methadone. And the one great thing, man, about this platform I have, I work with the most iconic stars, is, it was all a byproduct of my journey. I get to work with Banyan treatment centers. They have 16 properties around the country. I do anything I can to scholarship people in there if they can't afford it. I've got my own Aiming High Foundation. I scholarship people. Tim's got this incredible, him and his team of doctors and scientists, product called Bridge Therapeutics. And bro, it would take me 15 to 20 minutes every morning just to get out of bed before this worked. And these guys just have something that's so incredible that when they came to me with it, I'm like, I need to be a voice, because we will save and change lives. Where addicts know that fear of the unknown, the fear of how am I going to feel, the fear of I'm not going to be able to do it, the anxiety, the cravings. No, that there's something out there now. And it's a beautiful thing, because I didn't have that. And, like I said, I mean, who would have thought? We met because of my business platform, and now we're brothers because of my journey. And I've taken my pain and turned it into my greatest purpose. And I've aligned myself with my own team, because talking is one thing, No, you show me that desperation, I've got the plan to execute you getting a brand new life beyond your wildest dreams. And that's what's given Darren Prince self-esteem for the first time in his life. It wasn't the biggest stars. It was doing esteemable acts and being selfish so I can then be selfless. And it's the easiest way for me to say it, man. You know, blessing to be on here with you, because I know you and I have a pretty amazing connection and history with each other from the first time we spoke. And, you know, I just love the fact that I have a platform to tell people there is hope. There are alternatives out there to get the life behind your wildest dreams.
Oh, that is so beautiful. So what I want to do right now is have Tim come in and just, you know, introduce himself and why he even got into the line of business that he's in
Yep. Yep.
and what he's excited about referring it. So let's see if we can get him on it. And there it goes. We have Tim connecting right now. And there he is. I'll let Tim take it away whenever he's ready.
Hey guys. So my name is Tim Peara. I am president of Bridge Therapeutics. We are a startup. We are doing two important things in the addiction to drug space. Number one, we are coming up with a much better delivery of Suboxone, taking the delivery time from 10 minutes down to just 3 seconds. So like 99 times faster. And that should help with medication-assisted therapy. If you make it easier to do the medical part of a treatment program, then all the rest of it is also easier. So that's what we're going to bring. We are not in the market yet. We look to be applying for FDA approval, in the next 6 months or so. The other thing which we will be doing is coming up with a strong yet safe pain reliever. Since the year 2000, 1 million Americans have died from opioid overdose. The majority of these weren't trying to get high, at least not originally. The majority sought pain relief, but because opioids are so addictive, their meds let them down and things spun out of control. By working with the main ingredient in Suboxone, it's called buprenorphine. That's a drug which, if you use it once a day, it'll block addiction. If you use it 3 times a day, it will relieve pain. It's a very strong pain reliever, almost as strong as fentanyl for pain, but with tiny risk of addiction, and virtually none for overdose. So that's what we're improving.
That's beautiful, and that's extremely important work. And I'm just curious, when it comes to the medical field and that industry, the pharmaceuticals, you could have been working on anything. Why did you choose that?
I think it's important to believe in what you work on. I mean, I think it's important to have more than just a paycheck or why you go to work. And this is significant. This is going to help thousands and thousands of people, save thousands of lives. There's something like close to 20 million people in America have chronic pain. Now, not everybody gets addicted, but those people get addicted. There's a high proportion then who struggle with that. So if you can treat the pain without leading to addiction, you stop the problem before it starts. Equally, if you can make treatment easier, then it's going to aid a lot of people, work through it. So that's, we believe in what we're doing. I think everybody in the team believes in what we're doing, just beyond, this is a way to make a living.
I hear that. And now just something that I'm curious about, and Darren, you can jump in right after Tim answers. When it comes to people who are addicts, for those listening that don't suffer with addictions, which I think they're the outliers, those are the aliens who are now currently listening to the show, because I think, like Darren said earlier, it could be shopping, it could be eating too much, it could be you know, working too much. We all have our fair share of addictions, but why do you think personally, Tim, that people get addicted to certain activities or certain substances? And when it comes to changing addictions, and I wouldn't say graduating from them, but having a sustainable life that's enjoyable, that is void of all addictions, what do you think is one way that people can get towards that, just living healthier?
Well, I mean, I was looking at your blogs earlier, and I think you nailed it when you're saying that there are things that are positive that you can latch onto, and there's things that are negative. It's important to find things motivate yourself with things that are positive, that are constructive. Things like exercise, things like um, you know simple things like dance or sports. Anything physical is going to release tension, which if you're working in something which is intense, that's a great way to do it. I myself play tennis a bunch, but that's important in terms of the range of negative things that people get attached to. Part of that's just personality. In the area that we're working, the fact of the matter is that the opioids are probably they are among the most addictive substances that we face. It's really 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 hard for people to break an opioid addiction with talk therapy. You can do that with cigarettes. With more effort, you can do that with alcohol, and with a hell of a lot more effort, you can do that with cocaine. But opioids, I mean, the numbers are staggering. Talk therapy alone is like 6% effective. If you add a medication to that, it goes up to 83% are able to break that. So, but part of then the process is not just the med. It's the med will stabilize you while you're changing negative things to more positive ones. But it's important then to have other things going on in one's life in terms of in the immediate sense. It is a group. It is therapy directly and to support. It's changing lifestyle, diet, getting more sleep. It's like all the things that your grandma told you, right? It's yeah, and that's I think that's part of the way to get to the answer, and find things in life that bring you joy without having a real negative bias to it.
Yep.
Darren, you want to mention anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about in our program, but I think it goes in general. If you're trying to better your life, break free from bad character defects, bad habits, you change people, places, and things. The people you hang with, the places you go, the things that you do. I just don't think enough people have all three. They all really have to go together for you to get alignment with becoming your higher healed self. And like I told you, I mean, every time Tim talks about this, it just gives me chills because it just makes me think, my God, I remember those last 15, 16 months, the hell of just lying in bed for 15, 20 minutes before my brain started working, the horrendous taste of this quarter pill that I would have to take. And just to know that with Bridge Therapeutics, the right therapist, I'm speaking firsthand from a 12-step support group, meditation, healthy diet, exercise, any sort of activity, breath work, nasal work. I know you guys and Jay were big on that. Calming apps. There's so many meditation apps. There's so much you can do, but it's so much more than just one or two activities. It's just got to be an entire lifestyle change. I'm not always perfect at it. I might do everything else right, but have a pizza one day or eat, fries or, candy or whatnot. But yeah, I said it on your buddy Jay's podcast. I'm not exactly who I wanted, but I'm not yet where I wanted to. But thank you, God, I'm not the person I used to be. And I think we all need to kind of remember that as long as we're improving, as long as we're growing, as long as we can identify behavioral patterns that are not making us into alignment with our best selves, that's everything.
I hear that. Now, this has been just a beautiful conversation all around. And just to wrap, because one thing that I heard both of you say, Tim and Darren, you talked about community, right? You talked about the relationships that you have, the people that you are around, that you associate with. And this is just something that selfishly I always want to learn a bit more about, because one of the most important things in my life, or that I make a priority for, is people. And so my last and final question for you both is just, what do you know to be true about people? And better yet, what's something that you practice when dealing with people that will allow for you to have healthy outcomes? And it's a loaded question, but however you heard the question, I just want you to answer it. Because if you were maybe coaching somebody who was your sibling, who's a younger person, and they're getting out into the world and they're moving out of the home, the shelter, the safety, what would you want them to know about dealing with people before they go?
Tim, you take the floor first on that one.
Cool. All right. Well, I grew up in kind of a competitive household. I have three brothers. I'm the third of four. I'm also the smallest, but so yeah, competitive environment. I think it's important to be kind. I think part of what happens is, you can say it reciprocates, or what goes around comes around. It's important to kind. It helps to smile. My wife is a good one for that, but I think that sets you up. I think that's a good basis for lots of situations. And equally, I think it's important to be kind to oneself. To be forgiving for oneself. It's so easy to face a bad situation and get down on oneself, and yeah, it's really easy to be miserable. It's kind of hard to be happy. It takes a lot more work to be happy than it is to feel miserable. So, being kind to oneself and others is probably the best first step, I would say.
Beautiful, beautiful. Darren, come on.
I love that. I mean, if you literally watch the end of Jay's podcast, I think that was like one rule that I said, that everybody needs to be kind and be of service, was what I'll add to that. Be of service to other people. Even when I think back, I had another big interview this afternoon. I told them, people were never going to say Darren Prince was a bad person. I was a sick person, but I was always kind. I was always wanting to bring people along with me for the ride of life. Wasn't really the best at giving advice when I was wrapped up in that mindset. But now, my girlfriend's 25, and I kind of like to kind of pass along my wisdom. Mathilda, who works with me, I believe you've met her in Car Lake. I think with age comes wisdom. And unfortunately, if all three of us were on here and we were 20 years old, whatever year that was for all of us, I don't know how much wisdom we're taking from other people. That's unfortunately what happens. I mean, you heard earlier, Julian, what I did at 21, 4 arrests in 6 months. And the day I graduated, supposedly my outpatient program, look what happened. 90 stitches in my face. My friend falls asleep behind the car. But I just think I love what he said about being kind, because there's not enough of them in the world. And I think I've said it so many times that, none of us are responsible for our thoughts. That's just how our brain works. But it's how long do you want to think those thoughts? And if you want to get out of your own way, you got to be of service to other people. There's so many that are just struggling out there, putting aside addiction, substances, alcohol, just life in general. Be a voice, be a helping hand, talk to somebody. It's the easiest way for any of us to get out of our own head, is just to be there for somebody else.
Man,
Very good.
That is very good, very rich. And this has been very eye-opening, and I'm sure whoever's watching or listening, you've been very blessed to be a part of this conversation, and so was I. And I'm very thankful for Darren and Tim, and just the work that you guys are doing and continue to do, right? Because everything is a ripple effect, and sometimes you don't see the consequences of your actions right away, but the fact that you guys are doing what you do, the world's going to be a better place, no matter how cliche and la that sounds. But
Right.
it's a beautiful thing. Now,
yeah,
I almost feel like I'll be doing people a disservice if I let you guys go without this one last question. And that's what hosts and interviewers do. They tell you, okay, one more until when you add it up, and then it's midnight and you guys hate me. But this is literally the last question. And you can go as long as you want, or you could say one sentence. It doesn't matter. But for you personally, how do you deal with boom, 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 fill it in, regret? Because a lot of people who go through addictions, and even people who've never faced addictions, I'm sure there's a lot of regret, right? A lot of hurt, a lot of angst on, man, I wish I never did this. And even you, Darren, you talked about like how there's always these moments in life that could have went this way or that way. And for a lot of people, they went the wrong way, and they deal with a lot of regret because of their actions, or, their lack of action. So this is how we wrap the show, the beautiful, 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 beautiful show. The one action is to be kind in all that you do, because it's so much easier, like Tim said, to be miserable than it is to be joyous. So I really appreciate that. So I want you guys to really, really dwell on that. And number two, for any of you facing regrets, maybe you can try these two things. So whoever wants to go.
Darren, you get to go.
I'll take this one. So how do I deal with regret? I try to put things in the past, man. I say it that yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's the present. That's why we call it a gift. And I'm not perfect. And I still make mistakes. I just make a better quality of mistake as I'm getting older and staying spiritually aligned and keeping the right people in my life and bringing new and good people in my life. Julian, you came, would be almost 3 years now, coming up on my 50th birthday. Recently was a blessing with his team. And I think life, when you focus on having a lot of fun, helping a lot of people, and making money, I think those are three things. And I think just being selfish so you can be selfless, all those together, I can't hold on to regret, because I'm too much in a place of gratitude, and I'm too much in a mindset of, I know what I want to do each day to give back and to be there for others. Anybody can live with regret. That's easy. You want to be that glass is half empty person, focus on what you don't have, or you want to be the glass is half full and focus on what you do have. But hey, I'm a work in progress. It's taken me 14 and a half years to get to this point, but I don't regret any single thing about my past. I'll tell you guys that right now. It led me to who I am today. Every single thing. You guys would not know the Darren Prince of today. I owned it, accountable for it. I don't look back and say, I wish this didn't happen. It is what it is. I believe, it's so easy to be joyous, happy, joyous, and free when life is going great. Forget that. I don't learn anything about myself when life is amazing. I learn about myself when things are going all sideways, when there's problems. I want to be able to go through problems and grow through problems. And without those challenges, how easy it is, man, to just stay in that happy, joyous, and free pace. And you can roll around in regret. We're human. But manifestation, where's it going to get you? Nowhere. You're going to constantly attract that bad energy. You just got to learn to let it go. You got to forgive yourself, most importantly. If somebody else messed you up, screwed you over, or messed up, or if it's yourself, you just got to get into a place of forgiveness. It's life. We're human beings. We all make mistakes. We're going to continue to make mistakes. And that's it.
Yeah, Julian, I don't know. I'm going to have a whole lot more original than what Darren said, because he's expressed it well. I think at one point, or at some point, examining one past, it's limited. There's only so much you can do. Kind of put in a box, set it there, and move on. Life is lived forward. It's looking in the rearview mirror is not going to get you anywhere. So, the simple sort of prayer meditation is just to say, I love myself for who I am and forgive myself for who I'm not. And
I love that.
Right. That's a simple way to look at it. Just, yeah.
You outdid me with that one, Tim. You got me. That was a good one.
Oh, well. All right. It's nice to see we're of like minds, but there you go.
That is beautiful. See, and that's the beauty of opening the door with another question. And that's why I love people. I love doing what I do with you guys today. And, you know, it gives you an excuse and a reason for all three of us to sit and talk about the beautiful things that we're working on. And yeah, I hope that this motivated whoever's watching, whoever's listening, whatever you're going through. Darren's story is ridiculously crazy. And if you want to learn more about it, you can check him out. His book is called Aiming High. But Darren, how can people just connect with you if they're like, man, he moved me, I want to see what he's about, I want to learn more about him? How can they find you, or where can they look you up?
So Instagram is @agent_DP. And then it's official DarrenPrince.com. You can go to my Instagram. You'll see everything on the business side. I'm not here to really talk business, although I know people love the celebrity life and stories. And then, you know, Tim can fill you in on all the incredible happenings on Bridge, where to find them too.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, Bridge Therapeutics is the website, bridgetherapeutics.com. You can take a look at there. You'll see, you know, more about what we're doing. You'll see my bio, other, you know, biography of team members and stuff like that. You can get through to me through there or through LinkedIn if you like.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There you guys have it. Another episode of the Julian J. Franco Show, where I bring to you people who I feel are genuine, not only in front of the camera, but more importantly, behind the scenes. Take care. Enjoy yourself. Remember, be kind and forgive yourself. And looking at the rearview mirror isn't going to do anything. And Tim, close it off with that thing that you said with your prayer.
I say, I love myself for who I am and forgive myself for who I am not.